Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming for almost the end of the IGFs. Don't forget we have a coffee, Indonesian coffee that you can also bring home as one of our incentive to come here as well. We would like to invite you to have a great discussion with our amazing panel. We will have a discussion on social media and democracy. Social media does have the power to amplify social movement and democracy, but lately we see the current trend of practicing divisiveness, maximizing the social media. There are four amazing panelists here. First is Dirga Yuza Setiawan. He is an author who is also an ISOC fellow. It's a Hamzah Ben Mehres, I hope I pronounced you well. That's right. Policy analyst from Internet Governance Middle East, North Africa. We also have Ibu Mariam Barata, the Deputy Director of ICT Application from Indonesia, the Ministry of Communications. And we also have Teresa Horace Jova, Project Development Director of Develop Foundation. I hope I also mentioned it correctly. Well, I will tell you a bit the structure of this meeting. We will start with stories from the ground. So we will ask Yuza and Hamza first to tell the US stories because they are also part of the political activities using social media in Indonesia and in the Middle East, in Tunisia, for example, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. And we will go to Ibu Mariam, who will be speaking as her capacity as a government official on how to act upon that, how the government look at those social media in the political scene. And then we will come to Teresa, who will be sharing with us the international response to this in the international or multilateral organizations. We don't want these discussions to be a monologue, so I hope that every panelist can have like 7 minutes of discussion, and we will open for the floor to have a discussion. Yeah, let's start with Yuza.
Thank you very much, Ida. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I think Indonesia is in a unique position to talk about democracy. However, not many people around the world knows that Indonesia is the third largest democracy in the world. It is the second largest by number of voters because more people vote in the Indonesian election than in the recent US election. We have more than 40 political parties. We have a direct presidential election, and 550 members of national parliament. In total, in Indonesia, we have more than 500 parliaments and more than 3,000 members of parliaments. During the election in 2014, we have a five-year cycle. We have more than 12,000 members of the public that run for public office. 12,000. So you can imagine the level of democracy that we have to face every 5 years. In the 2014 election, I advised Gerindra, now is the third largest political party in Indonesia. It's also the second largest political party on Facebook. So I am quite proud of that because nowadays, if you're not on Facebook, it doesn't exist. I'm going to talk about trends in democracy and civic engagement. I think there are 4 things that I can talk about. First is trends in decision making, how social media is changing decision making, and then information dissemination. Thirdly, in political hacking, and also fourth in participation. First is decision making. As you guys know, politics is a scientific act. That's why there is a field called political science. In the past, politicians use tools like surveys and focus group discussions in order to understand what the population is feeling. However, these tools, especially in a large country like Indonesia with 250 million people, is out of reach for smaller parties and independent candidates. They don't have the money to actually survey, do a national survey. So that's why data mining enabled by APIs such as the Facebook API and Twitter API really help smaller parties and smaller candidates with not much cash to participate effectively in elections. This is also enable politicians and political parties to make decisions quickly on emerging issues. For example, several times in Indonesian parliament, the parties have to vote on raising fuel prices. And I know some parties nowadays, they use data from social media in order to decide whether they will they will say agree or disagree on certain decisions, because they understand that social media is a good indicator for knowing whether public support for the party will increase or decrease following a certain decision. Another trend that I'm observing is information dissemination. In the past, news and dissemination of information is monopolized by certain TV stations and certain radio stations. Today, so it's certainly not the case anymore. More and more people are getting their news primarily from social media like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And because of that, politicians are adapting themselves to social media. So in the past, people think about the 24-hour news cycle. Today, people think about how can I post on social media effectively. For example, people are learning that posting a lot of content on Facebook doesn't work. They have to only post 1 or 2 content every single day, because if they post too many, the reach number goes down. And I think people are starting to understand that. That's why people are limiting nowadays their talking points to 1 or 2 issues maximum a day. And echo chambers is getting real, especially after a divisive election. In 2014 in Indonesia, we have a very divisive election, just like the Clinton and Trump election in the US, and that created an echo chamber. So people who voted for candidate A are most likely to follow certain news outlets or social media platforms, and different with candidate B. But I'm also seeing that politicians now acknowledge that this is in effect. They understand that in order to reach the larger masses, they have to make an extra effort to actually appear in the TV station or the media outlets that is subscribed by the other half of their, the other side of the fence. It is easier for established media outlets, but I think it's much harder for fake news outlets, because you can't just go there and say your point of view. I'm also looking at the issue of people getting traumatized by participating online. So this is still in the topic on information dissemination. A lot of people, yes, they can voice their concerns, but we now see an increasing number of politicians are employing cyber armies, be it like a lot of people, or they're using AI to attack people who does not agree with their opinion. For this, I'm thankful for projects like the Political Bots Project, because they're shedding a light on this issue. And I think this will be a big problem in the future, because people will stay silent and censor themselves because they are afraid of getting bullied online, be it by bots or by real people. In Indonesia, like in the US, we also see some political hacking going on. For example, in 2014, soon after the election, when the votes are being counted, the website of the Election Commission could not be accessed for several hours because of DDoS attacks. And I think in the future, we're going to see more and more of this incidents. At the moment, we don't have any experience yet with getting information on WikiLeaks, but again, I think that's going to be a trend, because WikiLeaks is getting more and more political. And lastly, I would like to talk about participation. I said in Indonesia, I'm not sure about other parts of the world, political participation is limited to adults, so people who are under 17 years of age, they cannot legally participate in political rallies. But using social media, they can have a voice, they can participate in political activities. I think that's good, and they're also building platforms that increase transparency in the social processes. However, I do not see yet like an effort to share some of the learning platforms on democracy between what we already have in Indonesia with other parts of the world. And I think it's going to be the next step. This is a good start. Thanks.
Thank you, Yuza, for being so on time. So you are 7 minutes now. Hamza, so from Tunisia.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I am jealous, I would say as well, that Tunisia is a democracy or quasi-democracy. It's not only in Tunisia. So I will try to give you an overview about what is happening right now in the MENA region. when it comes to using social media and use it to consolidate this notion of democracy in the region. You know that if you take the case now, let me first say that if you go to a politician in the MENA region and you talk to them about social media, they still always have this perception and idea that people who are using social media in the MENA region, there are these irrational actors who don't know how to use that sphere, online sphere, to strategically advocate for tangible results. And if you go now for the MENA youth population and you talk to them about democracy, they hate the word democracy because they have been fighting for the word democracy for 23 years in the case of Tunisia, under a regime who censored, even killed, put people in prison, and now the outcome of their own revolutions is basically they have been deceived. So they have been able to topple a regime in Tunisia, you know, because of Ben Ali. People organized very well online and used independent structures such as Nawat to try to advocate rationally for the toppling of the regime. But that organization in the MENA region took only a short time. After we toppled those dictatorships, that online organizing movement vanished because now they are living in a political vacuum, and they think that democracy can emerge like that. Democracy requires a certain habit of minds and the willingness of people to compromise and to build accountable institutions. So that perception of between politicians and social media activists, that negative perception is still felt in the region. The other thing that I want to talk about is that in the case of Egypt, for example, the military in Tunisia has the upper hand when it comes to politics, and we have been seeing that maybe the outcome in Tunisia was positive. We have been able to topple the regime and to build accountable. We are in the process of building democracy. In the case of Egypt, it's a black box. The military has the upper hand on politics, and there is no chance now for you as a blogger or as a journalist or as an activist to use an independent social media to advocate for any economic policy or social policy or political policy. And you would be put in prison because of the dangerous climate and the hegemony of the military. And the thing is that if you see the trend that is happening in the MENA region right now, I feel that people, they have to organize better. People, they have to use Facebook and use it, or social media and use it rationally. They have to do research. They have to educate themselves on how they can bargain and go where they go where they are, where government are, or go where there's a private sector, and try to teach themselves on how to strategically advocate for policies. And the thing is that one of the trends that we are seeing right now in the MENA region is that the internet is polarizing society, is polarizing our society based on, you know, that in Tunisia, some of religious actors that came up and surfaced into the scene, such as the Nahda party, and people now, they are making their choices when it comes to politics, not based on policies and based on how those policies deliver in the short or medium or long term. They are making their choices based on, he's from a religious party, he's from a secular party, he's my friend, he's my acquaintance, yeah, so there's some kind of political tribalism or clientelism that still exists in the MENA region. We can see and feel it in Egypt. We feel it in Tunisia. And the thing is that it's really an interesting paradox. Social media activists in Tunisia, they used the online platform to topple the regimes, and they did it in Egypt. But the president of Turkey, Erdogan, used the WhatsApp application, used WhatsApp and used social media to stay in power. So those dictatorships who were against people organizing themselves online and advocating for regime change, they are using their same tool to stay in power. And if you see what Erdogan did, is that he took a phone and a WhatsApp application and he weaved a very strong narrative to his society, saying that we are democracy. Maybe I would sound controversial, but Erdogan was elected democratically 3 times. People have elected Erdogan. It's not Ben Ali or it's not Mubarak. So, and Turkey is relatively a democracy compared to other regions. So he used that tool to stay in power. And after that, when he stayed in power, he then used that power to that entrenched power to climb down again on the independent journalists and media in Turkey. So with the equation now, there's a correlation. The correlation said that if you want to use social media and you are a dictatorship, you have to be better organized to topple out that dictatorship. If you want to use social media and you are a democracy, you cannot change the system. And if you want to see real change, you have to organize better, basically. So for me, that's an overview about the region. And I think social media, I will finish by this, but social media can be used to better organize. But I think in the case of Tunisia right now, we are perceived by the West as being a democracy in progress, but we are sending the highest number to ISIS. So we are seeing by the West as being a model for democracy, but people, they can use social media to basically indoctrinate people and send them where they can use that, put it positively, or they can use it to be indoctrinated and to be the cog machines to other phenomenon like what we see now in the space in the MENA region. So I think we have to find a way to better organize and to kind of prevent that social space to be used by other actors in the MENA region for negative purposes.
Thanks very much, Hamza. It's a very nice insights from the MENA region from people. So we go to Ibu Mariam Barata, coming from the government point of view.
Okay. First, allow me at the outset to express my appreciation to the government of Mexico and the IGF Secretariat and Busita and all stakeholders for the excellent arrangement in convening this very important forum. Indonesia has been actively participate in the IGF and look forward for future collaboration with you. In response to the issue, we understand that social media is a platform in which the contents are generated from users and spread through the internet, making this a technology that promotes involvement, sharing, and collaboration. Almost all sectors of public life could not be separate from the use of internet, as it has also become the main reference for accessing news and information. Indonesia is open for many internet platforms, such as social media, website, and other online forums. This openness is expected to be beneficial for Indonesia in utilizing the great flows of information. Data of 2015 shown that our internet users have reached around 93.4 million. Some of the driving factor of the development of internet user in our country are the rapid infrastructure development and easy access to smartphone or mobile device. In this regard, social media and online shop contents are among the most accessed contents by the internet users. Ever since its independence, Indonesia has been a democratic country, and in this digital era, social media can aid the effort government around the world in doing public service in more transparent and accountable manner, as well as serves as an effective media to nurture tolerance and respect for diversity. This is why social media platforms become very important aspect in strengthening democracy in Indonesia. Same with Tunisia, some officials use WhatsApp for receive the report from citizens. While on the other hand, social media can also be utilized as a medium to incite hatred or false information. We believe that not only Indonesia, but many countries are also confronted by this paradox, which can be counterproductive to the democracy. In responding to this development, government could not stick with conventional communication means in order to grab public attention and support in implementing programs, policies, and regulation. By means, government should take advantage of social media in a productive and effective way to strengthen public services and transparency of information. For this reason, I believe that internet governance has to be an impetus towards ideal use of internet platform, including social media, that respect the laws and embrace norms and principle of good governance and based on responsibility and mutual respect. Because only by doing so, we can nurture a safe, responsible, and tolerant social media that can contribute positively for democracy. And how Indonesia to ensure the usage can remain positive? MCIT as a government agency has tasks in the field of communication information technology. It currently has some important mission to meet the need of ICT Indonesia that is growing rapidly, especially in the construction of telecommunication infrastructure, such as accelerating and increasing the development of broadband and the telecommunication industry. Also supporting the development of informatics application, as well as creating synergy in the management of ICT-based content by multi-stakeholder approach. However, it is important to know that the implementation of internet governance in Indonesia does not merely about the issues of technology and infrastructure, but also regarding management of the content in the virtual world. In this regard, Government of Indonesia has established policies and regulation to provide strong foundation to aid our effort in preventing misuse of social media for negative purpose. For example, just recently, the revision of our law on the information and electronic transaction has passed several changes, such as first, additional provision of the right to be forgotten or the obligation to remove content that is not relevant for the electronic system operators. This right can be exercised by request of the concerned person and should be determined by the court. And implementing regulation on this matter is underway. Second, strengthening the role of the government to prevent the dissemination of negative content on the internet, which the government is obliged to prevent the dissemination of electronic information that are illegal and can possibly creating negative impacts for the society. And the third, in strengthening internet governance in Indonesia, MCIT will continue to conduct evaluation and work together with the platform of social media and also the stakeholders in the process of managing the content. Taking into account the development and variety of contents that are being posted in cyberspace, the main role of government is not merely to control the content, but to strengthening its effort to protect the citizen as internet user from any potential harmful effect of the internet. Other important things, in order to formulate policies and regulation that are as effective and applicable, we also involve various stakeholders during consultation process. By those means, we look forward to have balanced, positive use of internet and social media in our society that can nurture democracy and good governance. The past development of cyberspace or internet have resulted to limited communication, but limiting in-person meetings and interaction. Yet, I believe that it should not holding up our values and ethics in our real world, because those values and ethics also apply in the cyberspace. In the use of social media as medium of interaction and discussion, public should also consider values and norms that applies in real world while interacting in virtual world, such as not to post content pertaining hate speech or against some institution or particular groups, pornography, human rights abuse, and not obedient to intimidate to the person or the particular group. In order that, we need to develop the situation where the social media can be useful for discussion and interaction positively, to encourage the tolerance and respect to each other. We hope to be able to raise the awareness of our citizens to obey rules and ethics while using internet, such as to check carefully on any information before spreading or posting it. We also have to make sure information and contents that are being posted and true, and hopefully can be beneficial as well. We should also refrain from posting any content that can possibly cause a defamation. The Internet needs to be reclaimed a safe global space for creativity, communication, and participation by and for everyone. In this regard, I would like to conclude the important role of government, who does not only act as a regulator, but also as a facilitator to build capacity, the creativity of local innovation, and create a conducive climate to development and strengthening of the local ICT sector. Also, most importantly, to promote digital literacy among the citizens. And for the successful effort, we need the participation of all stakeholders and on the internet governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Mariam. I think it's very interesting to see how the government trying to balance the use of social media in polarizing and giving democracy. I go to Teresa, who will give us more insight at the international level and multilateral organization.
Yes. Okay, sorry about that. We are getting tired towards the end of the year. Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Horejsová of Diplo Foundation, and thank you very much, Shita, for this invitation. First of all, I would like to apologize our director, Jovan Kurbalia, who had to cancel his participation here at the Internet Governance Forum and who would have been the one speaking at this panel. Jovan is a big friend of Indonesia, and we are really happy of having such a fruitful cooperation with you. Now, coming to the topic of the session, social media and democracy, just to frame it with what we are seeing in Indonesia, the biggest Muslim democracy, one of the areas where we cooperate with you closely and where we really admire your work is the multi-stakeholder model being really implied in the national IGF of Indonesia. So that is one concrete example where we can see these developments happening. Now. I was asked to talk a little bit about a kind of multilateral angle and the role of international organizations. So, in a nutshell, most international organizations are built around the three famous pillar: peace and security, development, and human rights. Even the United Nations is based on these pillars, as well as most other regional organizations, multilateral organizations. Now, what we are also seeing here at the IGF, coming to its close, even the discussions here seem to be framed around these three main pillars or angles or issues, if you wish. We are saying that also because, as you may have noticed, we at Diplo Foundation are closely following all the sessions happening here at the IGF and report from them in the form of the daily summary. So we are really trying to look at it from the thematic, topical point of view, and this is one observation that we can already make. Now, for most of the international organization, the human rights angle is particularly the one that is prevailing in looking at the link between social media and democracy. One concrete example that we can mention from what we have been observing, for instance, in the meetings of the Human Rights Council, the social media ranking is used for assessing the democracy and the peer review in the countries. However, besides the human rights angle, there is also the other angle, which is the security one, and here we are, getting to a very, very delicate balance. One example, again, to take from the concrete agenda that is kind of being hot on the multilateral front is violent extremism online. Which was discussed in the last few months at various occasions. The last one was just a meeting held in New York last week, and the delicate line lies particularly in the fact how to assure the security and freedom of expression. Where does this flow into the other? So. obviously, an ideal scenario would be to achieving a win-win solution where neither the human rights nor the security aspects would be ignored. If we can get some win-win solution, that would be ideal. At this moment, it looks more like a zero-sum game because it really is a very delicate line. I will probably stop here because we will have the discussion, but I will then like to react to some points that Mariam has raised because mainly on the paradox between social media and how it can further lead to radicalization in the online spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can have a good discussions with our panel. I'm opening the floor. You can also sit in front, so you can just ask. Is there any questions? Yeah, sir. Please. Do you have a microphone?
Okay. Thank you. My name is Mugambi from Kenya. Just a follow-up on the point by Hamza, in that in democratic societies, that social media cannot bring that radical kind of change. And this is a debate that has been there in Kenya because people say that it's social media noise, there is nothing really will change because all the hashtags or the retweets and all that, there's this feeling that that cannot bring a bit of radical change. And the current government, when they were doing their politicking and campaigns, they use social media extensively. And I mean, I doubt, I mean, in Africa, I think they're one of them that they really use social media. But now when they get into power, they're saying that social media should no longer be, as you say, they're turning the tide and saying that social media is not good for development, people are talking too much, we need to look at laws and regulations now to limit what these people are saying. We need to they say that we need regulations and code of ethics for bloggers and the like. So my question is that, what will you propose? I mean, from the MENA region, since we are a Kenya, I can say, quote unquote, we are a constitutional democracy. What other avenues will be available to bring that kind of radical change?
I collect several questions first. Is there any question? Yes, sir. Please do go. And the other one, yes.
Thank you. My name is Victor Becerra. I'm from Venezuela. What I was thinking about is like, even that social media platforms are really important to democracy, as we have seen in the latest years, I think there is an issue with social media platforms that are created by the private sector, because it can be used not only for the people, but it can be used to oppress people as well. It is like a arma de doble filo. I don't know how to say in English, I'm sorry. The thing is that, and in the IGF, I have been in a lot of sessions that they talk about how governments oppress people through social media too, like with attacks from spam bots or directly threats, or like hacking their accounts and taking out their personal information to use it against them. So I think there is a need of creating a social media with different values, but that came from this sector, from the civil society, regulated by organizations that, in a transparency way, that show that create this tool not only for benefit, like I'm going to say Facebook or Twitter, because they are made for profit, but social media. We have to develop social media for people, by the people, controlled by the people, in a way that all these attacks, all these things that happen could be avoided, you know, and a social media that really allows us to express things without being threatened, without fear, and social media where we can trust our data, because I think that is another issue. So how do you think could be that? could we do that platform, or like is there any idea about that? Has been said before me? I don't know.
As I understood the submission from the government of Indonesia, you were putting focus on both education for citizens as well as some legislative measures. Can you talk about how we effectively support citizens to do this work? I have a preference personally for how we support citizens versus legislation that might reduce freedom of speech. So I'm wondering how in Indonesia we're proposing to do that. And then the second question, which both to civil society and to the government, is in the context of trolls and troll armies, what is the appropriate response? What have you learned so far in Indonesia about how to manage this that could be relevant to other countries that are also grappling with this?
Thank you so much. I gathered 3 questions. If you forgot, you can ask me, but to make times more easy, I think Hamza, you speak first.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your question. It's really interesting. I mean, the problem that we have in the MENA region is that our state bureaucrats, now not all of them, our state bureaucrats, they perceive or they see the internet as a dark and scary place, where you have to hire a geeky employee and give him like an office, and he will manage all of the social media of his own bureaucracy or administration. I think us as social media advocates or as people working with civil society, I think we have to try to change perception. We have to try to go and advocate and go to those government officials and say to them and explain for them what is social media. So social media is not only about tweeting or putting hashtags or putting your photos with your girlfriend, or no, it's not. It's a creative engine of a creative content that it is when it is used strategically by a government official, he can hold himself accountable to his own constitution, and he can hold himself accountable to his voters. So. You talked about politicians are using the social media to as for a narrow set of objectives. So when they came to power, they tended to forget about what they have did with that creative engine. I think we should go and address them and say to them that if you use social media strategically and if you get more knowledge about social media, you can stay in power, and you can give incentive for people to vote for you in the future. And I think capacity building training on social media for government officials is needed. So that's I think one of the form of the of what we can do on the ground with government officials and policymakers.
So what do you think about the social media by and for the people? What do you think? The second gentleman.
Yeah, I forget that you didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to.
Okay. Hi, I'm going to address the question on social media by private sector and by people. I think that's a very interesting question. In the Indonesian experience, I've been seeing a number of politicians and political parties. They actually established their own social media platform. So they are present on the major platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, but they create their own platform so that they can circumvent the so-called rules that the big social media platforms have, and also for them to have a more secure and more open dialogue with their own followers. However, since maintaining a social media platform is quite expensive, you have to pay for cloud services and also developing the apps themselves. I don't think we will see in any near future any effort for the social media by people, from the people, because in the end there needs to be someone who take care of the platforms on a 24-hour, 7-day week, and it needs to be done professionally, I think. And on the question on the troll and armies, it's a very interesting one, because in Indonesia, in my experience, these tools are like like the mafia, there's a mafia that is selling services, and it come in two ways. One, in the form of like a room full of people. I've seen pictures of people with 20 phones and 100 people in the same room because they control many social media accounts. But I've also seen AI technologies that is actually being created for this sole purpose. And in Indonesia, the response is two ways. First is awareness. So like people like me and civil society activists, we bring this issue up to the people in the media. We talk about them. We use some examples because with awareness, what is the response of the public is they will ignore most of the racist and the hateful comments or on social media. And when people ignore these comments, I think in the long run, it will be harder for people who are providing such services to sell their services because the effectiveness will go down. And a second response will be with the politicians themselves actually mentioning on social media and on interviews that, yes, they value social media inputs a lot, but they use it now a lot to organize gathering. To organize offline gatherings, and they will hear from people who actually go to these gatherings their views instead of listening on social media, because a lot of this can be manipulated and played around. Thanks.
Okay. In Indonesia, we have been working on increasing citizen creativity through training for kids and adults, sometimes for parents and teachers, and for how to use internet to safe and secure. But when Indonesia have a program we call the internet smart creativity and productive to encourage the youth to use internet not only for the update status, but for make something with the internet, maybe blog or a website or application. And how pertanyaan kedua? I think because the government with the multi-stakeholder to make the training for Indonesian and for Indonesian Indonesian student. I think it is effective because all multi-stakeholder can. Indonesia have a lot island have the many island, and the government didn't can to training for the all Indonesian, and a government with the multi-stakeholder to train the student, all the student in Indonesia. And the second, the minister has a regulation on the handling of negative content by censoring or filtering content that is considered objectionable. That's all.
Thank you. You want to respond?
Thank you. Just maybe super quickly to react to Hamza, but also to Mariam's original contribution and the elements of training and awareness building. Yes, this is definitely essential for also ensuring inclusive and sustainable internet governance community, and even if the stakeholders are better informed, meaning better and in a quality way trained, that would also lead to more inclusive and efficient policy making.
Thank you very much. No? Okay. Yeah. And Izumi after this.
I need to put, okay. My name is Jiranut from Thailand. I have some comment. I think this session is really relevant to the current situation in many parts of the world, especially for Thailand. As we know that the social media is used as a tool for promote democracy, and we also aware that there is a dark side of social media. However, I think from experience in Thailand, as a social media is able to be used as a platform by many sectors to encounter with the narrative of the social. So right now we do not been like dominate the information from just only the big corporate media or state media control. This is very important point for the citizen to engage and be informed. I would like to send some update information. In Thailand, latest, just a few days ago, there was a people got interrogation and been visited by the police just because they click like to some social media of the influencer. This is, and some kind of like the threatening and warning for the legal charge. This is already arbitrarily enforced by the authority. This, we also need to be monitor these kinds of action and should not be accepted. And one thing, in Thailand we have the law that try to control the internet and social media is called Computer Crime Act. And that comes from the previous coup d'etat and the current coup d'etat. They also try to amend and draft the amending of the Computer Crime Act already finalized and planned to pass by the National Legislative Assembly next Thursday, which for the citizen and the public in Thailand, we try to stop that. Because there are at least three serious concern points. First, the new draft, the amendment draft is will like allow the committee to block the website without no need to be the legal content. So allow them to request the court to block the website without any kind like the legal violation or illegal violation. And the second point, the committee will they will set the unit that can direct block website. No need to request direct to the ISP, which is, I think, is gonna make like the censorship in Thailand is massive. And the last one, also about the provision that will punish to the citizen if like the court already decide any information supposed to be destroyed, and if they found that information into any citizen computer, they are deemed to be punished. So I think this is the current one is bad, but the amendment one is worse. And if both of them doing develop and draft and have some kind like the attempt to pass during the undemocratic government, I know that we are living under the repressive regime, but the kinds of the computer crime law, even the military already gone, but the law is still exist. I think if like the international community can help to put some pressure or send a letter to our government or to our parliament, it will be helpful, and it's in rush because the next 5 days is planned to pass. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Izumi?
Mine is rather a comment than a question, if I may. And sorry, I missed the first part, so you guys may have already described this. But why Indonesia? Have you spoken about that, number of users, etc.? So I was struck that you have the #1 users of Facebook, at least in Asia Pacific,
Yeah.
and the number 3 of Twitter users of the world, although Japan is number 2 and the US number 1. And you guys have a little bit more population, but also the user percentage of the Facebook of Indonesia is like 10%. Philippines is a little bit more, but still your very intensive use of the social media as a whole has been seen. Because in 97 I visited Indonesia for the first time to talk to the internet folks who started the internet. And that's gone on the good old days or bad old days during the economic crisis, and there are not too many people using the internet. And it's just an amazing change, not to mention the economic development per se. However, that's my first sort of observation. But so what? Is another question that, of course, with all the politicals and stuff, almost all camps of politicians these days are using social media, from Obama or Trump, or Modi or whoever, Abe, you name it. Whichever direction they want. Do they listen to? Yes, they listen to their supporters largely, but not the other camp. So what I feel, or my biggest concern is that, first of all, we may be seeing some new unknown mode of society, from kids to the adults, from terrorists to democratic movements. All of them are using this medium in favor of the direction they want. But do we have some universal understanding or connections between these? I would say very many small silos we are creating, perhaps. And it's really unknown. So a lot of young people in Japan feel comfortable with just having some online chat friends or line groups of 5 or 10 or 50. There are many sociologists doing the work, and I don't usually read, but from my direct experiences, they all like some form of interaction. China the same, Weibo, WeChat. But to me, as a whole, we might be being divided by different use of social media, different cultural, regional, whatever backgrounds they have. So we really see what we are heading to. I'm very much concerned that we are making the use of this medium together with the internet to break our society as a global society. Thank you.
Thank you, Izumi, for reminding us of the good old days as well. So is there any response from the panelists about this?
Yes.
From the Thailand, yeah, sure.
I want to, Izumi-san?
Yeah.
I want to respond to what Izumi-san has raised. I think you raised very valid concern that if we just let this go, it will be actually bad for society. And I think that is why civil societies need to play an active part. We need to continuously educate the people. Like in the past, in the old days, there's media literacy. Today, we need to have social media literacy. I think more people need to know that what they're reading on social media is not the whole picture, that they're reading things that they are tailored for them, and awareness in that is very important. In addition to that, I think we also need to push for the social media companies to let people know, their users know, how they are tailoring information to them. This is one, I think, one push that I agree. I think people should have a dashboard of information. For example, in my Facebook account, I think it would be great if I can see how Facebook decide what to show and what not to show, what kind of data they have on me, that their profile, in order for them to tailor the information. And I think another way we can approach this is to push for the social media companies to acknowledge that they are actually not only technology companies, but they are also media companies. And because when they do that, I think they will have to adopt the responsibilities of a media company, which is being to roll with their with their facts. Well, I'm not going to suppose they're going to check every single thing, but I'm supposing that they're going to do more in tackling fake news, in tackling silos, and also getting people together from different points of view. And I think in the US, we are already seeing some progress in that. Some presidential debates are actually hosted by the social media companies. And I think it would be good if such a model can also be adopted in other elections around the world.
Just a final thing. There is, I think, a legal problem here because there is no legal definition to an online journalist. There is no, so everybody knows what is an offline journalist, which is basically someone who go to BA, who has who works in an accredited like journal or newspaper. But I think what we need now in the context of Tunisia, what we apply is we apply the press law or the press offline law to regulate the behavior of online journalists on the internet. So the online journalists or online social media activists, they don't have any legal regulation to their own activities, which is dangerous. So if you want to criticize the regime or put something which is deemed really dangerous, you can easily be put in jail. So there's like a legal constitutional approach to that. You have to find a legal attribution to give to what do we mean by social media activist or an advocate. That's something. But if we talk about democracy, I mean, you have to quantify what is democracy. Democracy is about strong state institutions, about building the rule of law, and building as well accountable institutions. So it's not something that social media can quickly, create or build, and that's really the philosophy or the wrong philosophy that we are living in right now in the MENA region, is that because we use the internet and we use it extensively, we think that we can do whatever we can do and we can change systems. It's just an illusion. And I think in one of the fundamental questions, I would finish by this, is like how, as people working on the field, as a policy advocates, and people working with the grassroots communities, with the IG MENA program, the internet governance in the MENA region, how to translate online grassroots movement to an offline rational policy structures. That's how to go from the online structure where people use the internet to concrete policy roundtables where they can really try to build a democratic environment with policymakers. That's really strategic.
Thank you, Hamza. Is there any comment from Ibu Mariam or no? Well, I think we also have limit. I mean, we don't have time anymore. So I would like to thank you our amazing panelists. Can we? Well, I think I'm aware that this is not yet finished, and I think this is an ongoing discussion. I think we will go through this dilemma for more than 2 decades, perhaps, or 1 decade. But don't forget, we have a coffee over there, so you can get the coffee from the gentleman wearing an orange shirt. Yes, sir.
Sorry, but I can't help but to say this. I really appreciate, your government, Indonesian government, as well as civil society and the industry, to continue this IGF engagement, which is rare, actually. After you guys hosted the Bali's IGF in 2013, most of the host countries don't really do that. Except Indonesia. I was wondering why, but also very much, respecting you guys, and I just cannot help but tell my appreciation, our appreciation. Thank you so much. In addition to the coffee.
Very good points. Thank you so much. It's a very good discussion. Yes, Izumi. Thanks very much.
You deserve a tea.
Oh, yeah.
In exchange of the coffee.
Thanks very
You
much.
can share with anyone you like.
Yeah.
Hot water.
Okay.
Japanese. It's a roast.
start. You didn't come from the start.
Hey, congratulations,
That's an accomplishment.
I'll chase you into
I'm full of seeing.
Mas,